Good evening. I'd like to welcome everyone to the Parks and Rec Commission meeting this evening of December 13th, 2023, last one for the year. Super grateful for everybody being in attendance this evening and appreciate all that you do. I'd like to call this meeting to order and proceed to item number 2 on the agenda of approval of the November 8th, 2023 minutes. Is there a motion to approve of the minutes?
I'll move to approve.
Melissa has moved to approve. Is that seconded?
Second.
All right. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. We'll now move on to item number 3, public comment of any items not on the agenda. And if you do have items, please be sure to state your name. And we have the timer up here to follow the same rules that City Council does as well. But does not appear to be any public comment at this time. So we'll move on to item number 4, and we'll turn it over to Julie.
Great. We've had a couple staff changes. We're also in the process of interviewing some other staff. But we have 2 of the new members. Well, they're not new. They're current members of the staff that are moving into new positions here tonight. So I want to give them a chance to actually come up to the mic and introduce themselves. We'll start with Josh Worrell. He is our new facility manager. Josh probably looks familiar to you. He had been our assistant park superintendent for the past 3 years. So,
welcome everybody. Thanks, Julie. Yes, I am the new facilities manager. Started on November 27th, I believe, was my first day here. So I come to this department formerly from Parks Department as the assistant superintendent there. Previously, 12 years with the city of Coralville before that. So. Kind of our duties, I have a 12-member staff that works underneath me. We will manage Robert A. Lee, Mercer, Civic Center, Police, Fire, Senior Center. So any of the building facility needs, major projects, that type of stuff, we'll be handling with those. So any questions for me?
not yet.
Perfect.
Not yet. Welcome. We're grateful you're here. Thank you.
And then we have Kaylee Hausch. Kaylee had been our rec assistant full-time. As you know, Kate Cannell, our aquatic supervisor, left for a consulting job. So Kaylee is our new rec program supervisor for aquatics. Same thing, Kaylee. Give us a couple. Yeah. Pull it down. I think. There you go.
Yeah. Hi, I'm Kaylee. I was formerly the recreation assistant here. Started as a lifeguard in 2019. So I've always tried to at least apply for all the openings just to stay here at the city. I've really enjoyed it. So I just started Monday in the program supervisor position. So still just kind of easing into it, and it was a lot of fun, and I'm looking forward to everything that's to come with aquatics and just working with the city. So hello, everybody.
Great. Welcome.
Thanks to both of you.
Okay. So we'll move on to item number 5 for Brad.
Yeah. Brad Barker here. He'll go through our annual look at our fees and charges.
Hey, good evening, everybody. All right, so this is our time of the year where we review the fees and charges that we have for the various programs and rental facilities that we have under the department. And the last 2 years, FY23 and FY24, the commission had moved to approve an increase. Typically, we're in the 3 to 5% fee increase across the board. And so that had been recommended the last 2 years, and that was approved. And the primary reason why we did consecutive years, usually we do back-to-back, but we had done consecutive years the last 2 years because of the inflationary pressures. We were seeing rising costs of goods and services that we were experiencing, and then kind of looking to need to maybe pass some of those charges on to the participants of our programs. And so with everything stabilizing in terms of inflationary pressures, the staff's recommendation for this next year would be to not have an increase in the fees and charges. However, in the fees and charges guide that you have there, I do have an option there where there is a proposed increase, but again, it is the staff's recommendation to not increase fees at this time.
So we would be looking for a motion and recommendation from you to either not increase or to increase as shown in the bracket.
Is there a motion to not raise fees?
I would make a motion to not raise fees.
Yeah. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. So yeah, anything that we can do to make sure everyone can have access to
Yep. And
opportunities
And
that
of
way.
course, we continue to advocate for our Rec Assist program.
Perfect.
Which takes 50% off of most of the fees and charges that we have.
That's great. Thank you, Brad. Appreciate that.
I have a question
Yeah.
on the fees for rental spaces. Do you all plan future years, 5 years out, 3 years out? Do you have any projections, or do you just go in year by year?
We go year by year.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sounds good.
Yeah.
All right.
All right.
So we'll move on to item number 6.
Our next item was a request from a couple of the commission members. And Sarah, you can come up here and sit in my spot if that's helpful. That's all right. Okay. We have Sarah Walls and Kent Ralston from our Metropolitan Planning Organization to give you an update on the bicycle master plan and trails and answer all your questions on those subjects. So thank you for being here.
And I are both with, should I talk to Michael?
Yeah.
Yes, please.
And I are both with the Metropolitan Planning Organization, but we're also employees of the City of Iowa City, do transportation planning. So we're aware and have a lot of advice for what the city does, but we coordinate also with our surrounding cities, Coralville, North Liberty, University Heights, Tiffin. So we'll go. The Iowa City Bicycle Master Plan was adopted back in 2017. This is a map of the network, and it's, you know, I realize it's kind of hard to read, but basically what I'm showing you is how the network is built out of these different facilities. About 27 miles of off-street trails. Those are the trails that are really extended trails, and then 10 miles of the local trails. Those are little connector trails through parks, or they might be from like a part of a subdivision like that's on a cul-de-sac that connects through to something else. Those are the local trails. Side paths, some people call those wide sidewalks. Those are the continuous sidewalks that run along the 8 to 10 foot wide continuous sidewalks that run along our arterial streets. So we have almost 27 miles of those, and then we're now up to 17 miles of bicycle lanes, so on-street facilities. In the downtown area, we've nearly completed our the projects that were in the plan. Most recently, the Madison Street 4 to 3 lane conversion. That's a common way that we get additional bike lanes. 4 to 3 lane conversions happen for other reasons that have to do with reducing collisions and things, and then that additional space can be allocated to various things, parking being one, but bike lanes to the other. So we have them on Madison Street now. Jefferson and Market have long had bike lanes, but this year those were extended all the way down to Madison, and they are now buffered bike lanes. So you have the lane plus about 18 inches of space between you and the motorist. We have bike lanes on also buffered bike lanes on Governor and Dodge Street. We got bike lanes on a portion of Burlington Street just before the bridge. And then the light blue that you see are the bikeways that we have that sort of connect on low volume streets that connect to these various facilities. And then where we have intersecting streets that both have bike lanes, then we get the green bike boxes, which I'll talk about in a minute. But one thing that might change all this is the city is contemplating one-way to two-way conversions, both on Market and Jefferson, and on Governor and Dodge, and that may adjust. You know, on all those streets, we just have the one-way bike lane. We might end up with 2 bike lanes on one street. We might end up with some of those streets having bike lanes and others not. So for example, I'm not saying this is gonna happen, but if they went from one-way to two-way, we might have the bike lanes, say, on Jefferson Street and not on Market. That's just all remains to be seen. And so the bike boxes, again, those are opportunities for bicyclists to position themselves during the red light phase at a signal. So on this example, which I believe is taken from Jefferson Street, a bicyclist would pull up on that left side, because the bike lane's on the left side, during the red light, and then scooch over to the right to prepare for a right-hand turn into the next bike lane on Dodge Street. This has an added benefit is that it separates separates out the pedestrians from the bicyclists from the cars. So you can see on that picture that the bike box is back from the pedestrian crossing. And so it just gives a little more space for all the different users. It also lets the bicyclists, when that light finally turns green, that they can kind of get through the intersection and get out of the way of cars. So cars should appreciate this, I would hope. Then in the east side neighborhood, so the areas east of downtown, again, we have the bikeways. Those are signed, and there's some wayfinding. And in this area, they're particularly important for getting students down Sheridan Avenue and then cutting down through sort of the alphabet streets down to Southeast Junior High, and also bikeways leading to City High. This year, we got bike lanes, you'll see at the top, on a portion of Rochester from 1st Avenue to 7th Street. Rochester just opened the other day, and I'm so happy. I live off Rochester. And then another way that we get bike lanes, so that was a major reconstruction project that allowed us to get bike lanes. Then on American Legion Road, major first-time construction, taking a road from a rural cross-section to an urban one, and there we got buffered bike lanes on both sides and the side path that's leading from Scott Boulevard out to the new school. And then, of course, this is an area where we rely heavily on the Court Hill Trail, which really provides a great commuter route to those far east side neighborhoods. I also want to mention that in the Bicycle Master Plan, other streets were identified as a possibility for bike lanes, Muscatine Avenue being one, Kirkwood Avenue. It turns out when we reanalyze those streets, they're really not wide enough. Like the absolute minimum, in theory, is 30 feet of pavement, which would give 2 10-foot travel lanes for cars and then the 5-foot bike lanes. But you really, on those streets where we have transit, and then, you know, depending what the storm drains are like, it just doesn't work out that way. And so we will not be getting bike lanes on most of Muscatine, nor on Court or Kirkwood. But we rely heavily on that Court Hill Trail for the east-west, and then there are routes that can guide you to the downtown as well as to the Iowa River Corridor Trail on those bikeways. The south side of Iowa City, which is a glorious place to ride your bike, we got bike lanes on Keokuk Street, south of the highway, again, a 4 to 3 lane conversion. Then we got bike lanes on Southgate to get you over, you know, toward the Iowa River Corridor Trail. Eventually that will connect all the way through to the Iowa River Corridor Trail. You'll be able to ride down Southgate and connect. We also got that far eastern portion of the Highway 6 trail running from Hines Road up to Fair Meadows Boulevard, and that middle section between Fair Meadows and Broadway, we will get probably in 2026. We have funding for those years. So that'll kind of complete that network. And then as those networks go in, that's when we get these other bikeways. So you can see like on Lakeside and Burns Avenue, we connect these other routes to the new facilities. And then I should say in the next year or two, I think 2 years away, we will do a 4 to 3 lane conversion on that portion of South Gilbert Street south of Southgate Avenue. That's a very popular bicycle route, and so we will get bike lanes on that portion of Gilbert Street. Then on the west side, we have the Highway 1 bike trail, which is very successful. But this year we got the Benton Street. We got bike lanes on Benton Street from Greenwood all the way out to Mormon Trek Boulevard, where again we have bike lanes, and that was due to a 4 to 3 lane conversion on Mormon Trek Boulevard. Those are kind of the big projects there. We also have bike lanes on Raritt Road. But on here, I wanted to call your attention to something else important, which is we have coming up in the next several years 2 major bridge replacements, the bridge on Highway 6 and the bridge on Burlington Street. Will both be replaced. Those, as you can imagine, they won't be going simultaneously. Those are major projects that have major implications for both bicyclists and pedestrians. Obviously, we're all very familiar with Burlington Street, and it's difficult for people to get over and then up the hill. The reconfiguration of the bridge and the roadway is going to reconfigure that so that it will be much more advantageous to bicyclists and pedestrians. Then down on Highway 6, we really don't have any facilities, including pedestrian facilities, between Riverside Drive and almost to Gilbert Street. And if you're down in that part of town, really any time of day, you will see people biking and riding across the bridge, and they really don't have any place to be. So it's less than safe. We had one fatality here a number of years ago, and so it's really important to get that. Lots of people are walking and biking to work and other places that they need to go, and so getting that bridge will be an important facility for everyone. A couple things that are coming in the future. The City Council has asked us to look for places for protected bike lanes, and the example they wanted to use is bollards. Protected bike lanes, I'll say a little bit about them. They're a little bit complicated because you have to figure in both the spacing, having the space between the bike lane and the travel lane, and then also if there are driveways or intersections, you have to figure out how you're going to get those on and into that area. So I think we're actually going to be working with a consultant to figure out where the best area in town is to try out the protected bike lanes, but those will be coming in the next couple of years. And then I wanted to say a little bit about, we're trying to educate people about a variety of things, safe passing distance. So in case you didn't know, when you're passing a bicyclist, you want to be no closer than 3 feet from the bicyclist, preferably 5 feet. And then on those streets where you're traveling faster than 25 miles an hour, you'd really like to take to the adjacent lane. That's the safest way to pass a bicyclist. Also, you're going to see, it's already taking place, we're replacing some of the old share the road signs with bicyclists may use full lane, and we occasionally get questions of that. It doesn't mean that the bicyclist is meant to hog the lane, but there are places where the bicyclist should be out away from the curb and riding in the lane through segments, certain road segments and transition areas. Experienced bicyclists are not going to ride in the gutter because it's simply unsafe to ride there. Further out in the lane gives you more visibility. You're away from all of those hazards at the gutter. And then in places like roundabouts, and there's certain forks in the road and things like that, where the bicyclist really temporarily needs to take control of the lane and get through that spot and then move back over to further to the right. I just want to say a word too about bicycle collisions. So here's what 11, 12 years of history of bicycle collisions in Iowa City, and we can see that with all the growth that we've had and all we've added on, we've really come down in the number of bicycle collisions. Obviously, we'd rather see that at 0, but we are doing pretty well at those, so that's a good thing. And then in terms of bicycle counts, I just grabbed a count that we just finished up this fall on the Iowa River Corridor Trail at Crandick Park. So that's, if you're over on Rocky Shore Drive, you can take a trail that connects over to Coralville to Iowa River Landing or connects over to the Clear Creek Trail. And you can see these are the monthly totals. We don't have every month in there. June and July, August and September, I guess, aren't in there, but we got spring and fall in there. And you can see, how many riders we're getting a month there. And the counts that we do on the trails are increasing every year. Slowly over time, we'll be able to get more hand counts that we would do on the roadways. And then part of the Bicycle Master Plan was also education. So we do have some educational things. The Bike Shorts videos, which are on YouTube and we share periodically, and we invite other people to share them, cover all kinds of things of bike etiquette, bike safety, bike maintenance, all those kinds of things. We also have a Rules of the Road brochure that we invite and encourage people to use as part of their education that we have translated. It's in English, let's see if I can remember, English, Chinese, Arabic, French, Spanish, and Swahili. And anyone who wants to use those is welcome to use those. We also started a program called the Bicycle Friendly Driver Program that we've done with the transit agencies, just teaching new and old bus drivers about bicycle behaviors and bicycle safety. So, and then pointing out certain areas in the community where they might notice certain things so that they can be more sensitive drivers. And we would, of course, love that program to expand. And then finally, in the coming years, we'll be looking at branding and wayfinding of our trail system. It is becoming quite popular and will only become more so because of the connections of the Clear Creek Trail. Now you can ride from South Iowa City along the Iowa River Trail, connect over to the Clear Creek Trail, and ride all the way out to Tiffin with only a couple street crossings, and the only street you ride on is like Normandy Drive, which nobody drives on. So, you know, we expect more bicycle tourism and things like that. So that's kind of where we are. And we welcome any questions. Kent, do you want to say anything?
Yeah, good evening, Kent Ralston, Transportation Planner. Sarah did a really nice job teeing this up. I just wanted to say that the plan itself was adopted back in 2017. Yeah. So, and it was meant to be about a 10-year or so plan. And I would argue, here we are, maybe 5-6 years out, that we're probably 80 to 90% done with the plan. You know, the educational components really never stop, but as far as the infrastructure goes, I think we've been really super successful. Much thanks to the work that you all do, as well as the Parks and Recreation Commissions in Coralville and North Liberty. And I would also say that when you look at the entire metropolitan area, we have, I would say, by far the best sidewalk and trail network in the Midwest. And I think it's hard to argue against that. The other nice thing about when we went through the Bicycle Master Plan planning was that parks were identified as a destination. So you probably saw in some of the materials that Sarah shared that at this point, I would say most all of the Iowa City parks, maybe save for some neighborhood kind of pocket parks, are really well served by sidewalks and in most cases a trail at this point. So I think it's been really successful, and kudos to you all for the work you do. And Sarah really has done most of the heavy lifting from our end, so kudos to her as well. And happy to answer any questions that you guys have.
What kind of education do you guys do around the bike boxes?
Yeah.
Because I learned about those at the last commission meeting you guys are at.
So there's what's called a two-stage bike box down by the CRWC on Burlington Street at Madison. There we actually have a huge sign that explains the bike box. In terms of education, we have put out videos on it and some handouts on it. I would say when it comes to education, we can do a little bit of stuff online, like attracting people to that stuff, but we really rely more on like groups like Parks and Rec or bicycle advocates, you know, like the Bike Library and Bike Iowa City, to do, because our role, like we can provide materials, but we don't do programming, so.
The other thing I would say too is that for vehicles, it's I think pretty obvious what you're supposed to do, because we've even posted signs that say stop here at this point, so that you're not covering the bike box. And then for the bicycles themselves, it's pretty easy to figure out, I think, what you're supposed to do, because if the vehicle does what they're supposed to do, I mean, it really creates that sort of path for you. So I think even if you've never used it, you think, well, I guess, you know, this is what I'm supposed to be doing here, because intuitively, in the places where we have the single stage bike boxes, which are just the big ones, you would be using that if you're trying to get on the adjacent street. So we use them as a connection. So if you're on the far side and need to get to the close side, you can actually sneak over. So I think it's more intuitive than might seem if you're actually on a bicycle. Yeah. It's a good question.
Go for it, Rachel.
Oh, mine's related to education as well. You mentioned that bike box area in Burlington, so I drive to the hospital most days, and I guess I wasn't aware at all about the bike box rules. I mean, I think you're right, the box is intuitive, I guess, right when you get there, but when I have to go into the right lane and there's like a dashy line, and I'm just really worried I'm gonna hit a biker because they could come. And I just wonder if there's any official, I mean, it seems that the DMV could have this, add these new signs. It's an official signage, right, to their tests in some way. I mean, it seems imperative. It doesn't make sense that we would learn what a stop sign is and a hexagon is this and that, and not these dashy lines.
I think they are starting to learn in driver's ed. I can't say how much they cover bicycling, but they are covering some of the special facilities. Okay. So where we have these bicycle boxes, there's no right turn on red. So the idea is that you might have accidentally turned on red, as many people do. But like down at the CRWC, there's no right turn. So it would be in that case, the bike lane that's coming east, so on the right side of the road, right in front of the CRWC. If they pass through on green, they would just stop in the bike box on the far east side of Madison and just wait in that box for then the light to turn green on Madison so they can cross. That's the only bike box there.
I see, okay.
Yeah.
I wasn't.
So you just maybe have never, like, you've never interacted. And I would say that bicyclists that are very experienced tend to not use the bike box because they're comfortable like moving across those lanes into the center turn lane on a busy street. A less experienced bicyclist would do the 2-stage. And that's probably how they would do the turn anyway, but this just gives them a box to wait in where they're not gonna get hit.
I messed up. It's not on the Madison, it's not the bike box. It's at the corner of Riverside in Burlington, where you turn right, and it is a right turn on red. And you suddenly, it's just 2 lanes, and suddenly you go to the right lane.
Yeah.
And then there's a bike lane too with the little
So
hash marks.
the hash marks are, the hash marks are the mixing area where cars are going to pass through. So it's signaling that to bicyclists and cars. And I would agree with you that more education needs to be done, for sure.
Official.
And the other part too is that I will say that's a tricky area, and when the bridge gets replaced,
That's true.
which is going to be a few years, but when
Yeah.
it does get replaced, I think we will vastly
Yeah.
improve that.
Yeah,
My best guess is we'll have
Okay.
more of a cycle track situation where bicycles are completely off the roadway, I think. when
Oh,
it's
that's
set
great,
up.
yeah.
Now, we have a long way to go to get
Gotcha.
there, and I think that's probably what
Okay.
will end up happening.
Because I'm on Nextdoor a lot, and there's just lots of controversy, of course, between bikers and drivers. And I do think if it was just a hard, fast rule, like that's it, like a stop sign, then they wouldn't be so angry at the bikers for doing it.
Yeah.
I'm not a biker, but
Yeah.
I just see that there's
Yep.
contentiousness
Yep.
in it.
That's a good point.
Yeah, there is. Any other questions?
Yeah, so I have a couple. So it was great to see just and hear about all the different languages as far as the bike rules, and just was trying to think about other ways that we can get that out in the community more. So that was something that I wasn't aware of, as well as into the schools as
so
well.
we welcome people to they do take them to the bike rodeos, or they have in the past. We distribute a lot of them through the bike library, which I would say, like, in terms of diversity and reaching all the different groups of bicyclists that there are. I mean, the bike library has really been, I think, knocked it out of the park on that. You know, they just really have a lot of outreach that they do, so that's been a great thing. But they do use them at the bike rodeos.
That's great. Great to hear. And it's great to see the numbers decreasing from the kind of collision map, but wasn't sure and if there's certain areas that things that we can do to try to minimize, if more of the collisions happen in a particular area. So if there's things that we can do to try to minimize just some of that as well.
So that's a good point. What we received this morning, actually, and I haven't even let our city manager know yet. We actually
keep it a secret.
Yeah, keep it a secret for a little bit, but we actually got a grant.
Public meeting, but
awarded this morning for $300,000. It's a Safe Streets and Roads for All grant.
Wow.
Out of the new bipartisan infrastructure bill. So we will be hiring a consultant, and this is actually Metro-wide.
Yeah, Metro-wide.
Okay.
Which is a good thing. We'll hire a consultant for the next 3 to 5 months. Probably it's going to take a little while for us to actually get these funds.
Yep.
To hire a consultant to actually look at what we would call hotspots. And Sarah
Perfect.
does this for our office, and we sort of know what's going on with
Yep.
respect to hotspots where collisions occur. But this will be then this outside resource coming in, looking really holistically at our entire area, and then also giving us recommendations on how to correct those.
Great.
Whether it's infrastructure or otherwise. The nice part about this grant is once we have an action plan in place, this is called, then we can actually apply for infrastructure funding as a second wave of this. And it's
great.
got a huge funding pool, so
Yeah.
we're really excited about that.
That's great to hear, and just want to do all that we can to make it a safe community that way. So appreciate the work and efforts that way.
The Sharrows or Sharrows, are those the white sort of?
They have arrows, so it's a shared lane marking. So you'll see Sharrows out here on Gilbert Street. You'll see them on Muscatine.
Sorry, the pole things, what are those called?
The
Bollards.
Bollards?
the bollards,
And you mentioned there was an issue sometimes with
driveways.
driveways. I wonder, I don't know.
So usually when you have a protected bike lane, it'll usually go in, usually on arterial streets with really long block faces and very limited numbers of driveways. That's typically where they go in. That doesn't, otherwise they might be in like a lower speed setting where there are some driveways, but there's a lot of maintenance and complications with where you choose to put those in, and so that's why we'll be working with a consultant on that.
Well, I was just wondering, I mean, is it possible for the people who own those driveways to have some sort of tax incentive so that they'd be more likely and more amenable to? I don't know. It's just-
I mean, your driveway is your only access to your property. So unless
actually.
unless you're off an alley, we really wouldn't
I
have
see.
that opportunity. But at least on newer arterial streets, that we really limit the number. We really discourage driveways, and there are various streets that have bike lanes where there are maybe there's only one driveway on the block, and you can configure them in. But it's just that I think people think, well, why don't we just have protected bike lanes everywhere? And the reason is because you just don't have the conditions to get them in, both the roadway width and then the lack of disruption from driveways.
And we have had requests for a true protected bike lane, which would be like a concrete wall or something that you've seen other places maybe. The issue we have is because we do have an older community with lots of driveways, you obviously can't wall off streets and obviously driveways, so it gets a little bit tricky for us.
And then there's maintenance in the wintertime. You have to have special snow clear, so
that makes sense.
there's just a lot of like little things that make something that seems simple more complicated than it
And
is.
if we move forward with bollards, which I would say is an if at this point, it's sort of a pilot project to see what the benefit actually is, because the bollards won't keep a car right from striking the bicyclist. I mean, they're flexible plastic bollards, so we want to understand if there's a perception, if it's better for visibility, just to demarcate the area altogether. So we're going to use it as sort of a pilot project to see if it's really kind of a cost benefit. Yeah.
What kind of standards are there for new developments and subdivisions for including like off-street trails or side paths or things to make sure that every new community is connected and integrated into the trail system? Is that like a requirement for development?
So usually those things are identified in the district plans. So the South District being a really good example, they've identified a future trail, and what they usually will follow is flood areas, other waterways like river and creek, utility corridors where there's an easement that it can't be developed. So in the case of the south side, from the new school, Alexander, there's like one that cuts like northwest diagonally, and it's just following the trunk sewer line. We can't build anything over that sewer. So we can build we can't build buildings over that. So that's an area where you would get that. Then with the extension of arterial, and in some cases possibly connect collector streets, as those are being, like on the edge of the community where they're coming from a county road essentially as to a city road, then we build those with the width for bike lanes and the width for a side path. And then with the reconstruction projects like we just had on Rochester, if we have the space, we will get those in at that point. But the bike lanes are going to be on arterials and collectors. Otherwise it's a lower volume street and you don't need that kind of facility. But the trails are almost always identified in the district plans, and then when people come in with a subdivision plan, a developer, that's identified as something they have to factor into their subdivision, and it might be something that they're required to build, or in certain circumstances it might open up the opportunity for the city to build it. Just depends.
Any other questions from the commission?
Real quick, I just want to say first, I manage an apartment complex on Benton Street. I've had great responses from my residents as far as adding the bike lanes to Benton Street this year.
Oh, great.
It's had the residents feel a lot safer when leaving the property, and I appreciate it too. There's less complaints as well. So,
yeah, I have seen a lot of people using them already,
Yeah.
and as soon as they were painted, people were using them.
yeah, it was basically day one. It's been a major change. So first of all, I wanted to say thank you. I have had some people come and ask about Greenwood Drive. It tends to be a major commuting point for students that live south of the university, and they know there are no bike lanes there. But I do notice on
It's
the
a bike
map
way.
here, it says Sharrows. Am I pronouncing that correctly? Sharrows.
So shared lane markings. Some people call them sharrows because they have a chevron that looks like an arrow.
Okay. So that was basically my question: is what is that, so I can relay the information? and all
So
that.
Greenwood and Myrtle are just signed with the blue bikeway sign, and there's some wayfinding signs there. So that's the connection, to get people from Benton down to the university on that hill. I mean, you can certainly ride your bike down the Benton Street Hill, but that's in traffic. That's daunting for a lot of people.
Yeah,
So
that Benton Street hill,
Greenwood is
I'm
just much easier.
Glad that you guys stopped
Yeah.
at Greenwood, because really that hill
Yeah.
there, cars hitting
Yeah.
50 plus going down that
Yeah.
hill. So that made sense.
We'll often use the shared lane arrow or the sharrow in cases where we can't actually have a true bike lane. So a true bike lane has to be 5 feet wide minimum, and that's pretty tight. We try to make ours 6 feet if we can, and then we even have these buffered bike lanes now, which provide a minimum of another 1.5 or 2 feet. So in cases like Greenwood, where it won't actually be wide enough to have a true bike lane, that's when we have to resort to some signage as well as some pavement markings.
Yeah.
Got it.
And so there will be, in the next year or two, there will be bike lanes on Sunset, south of Benton Street as well, which then would connect down to the Highway 1 trail.
Great. Okay.
Great.
Is there signage that can be put up? I'm particularly thinking of downtown, because on my commute back and forth to work, I'm coming through downtown, and especially coming back from work, it is an absolute monster. I am constantly veering in and out of traffic because it is cars sitting in the bike lane like the entirety of Clinton Street, more or less.
On Clinton Street?
Yeah.
Yep.
And even I go up Jefferson, and I'll often have trucks, cars, sitting there for a minute off of just in the bike lane. Signs are signs, and you can only have so many, and then you're just having too many signs. But is there signage that can be put up to put a little more fear into the driver?
I mean, they're signed. They are signed as bike lanes, and they are signed as in the case of Jefferson and Market, no parking. That being said, it is a constant challenge for our enforcement people, and a lot of it is delivery drivers, obviously, and they've gotten wise to like how quick they need to do things so that the person who's ticketing them can't get the ticket written fast enough. But it is, you are correct, it is an issue, and we're trying to find a solution for it. We don't have one yet. I think also during COVID, that's kind of the rise of like all the various, everybody was getting everything delivered, and the city was trying to balance the need to, keep our bricks and mortar businesses open, not wanting to be too hard on them or prevent them. And then, this situation. And I'm sorry that we don't have a solution for it yet other than enforcement.
And the one thing that the parking folks downtown have done is they actually made this little, it's pretty funny, but it's this little brochure. I forget exactly what it says, but the police and the parking attendants have actually been giving them to the junk drivers and the grub hubs and whatever else there is. And it basically reminds them, you cannot park in the bike lane. If you do it again, we're going to take you, basically. But it's hard for them, like Sarah was saying, to actually ticket those folks because they are in and out so quick. But just sort of as a soft approach, they were going around and, there'd be a line of 10 or 15 cars in a row that were clearly deliveries that they just hand them out, and say, hey, in case you didn't know, you got to move on and you can't be parked here. So kind of taking a soft approach, trying to balance the needs of the biker and the needs of the community with respect to the downtown businesses.
Absolutely be sympathetic to they're trying to do a job too, but
not
wanting to keep veering in and out of traffic.
Speaking of Clinton Street, it's so wide, especially between Washington and I guess Jefferson probably, and so it sort of invites people to go faster. But it's really part of the downtown, and there's so much like pedestrian traffic. Like on Washington Street. It's so narrow, the bikers will just take up the whole lane.
Right.
Just naturally, right? There's no room for a bike lane. But it almost seems like it'd be better off if Clinton Street didn't have bike lanes and you're just encouraged to take up the whole lane. Because that would be more in the pace of how fast you want people to go, and then the delivery drivers can kind of, sort of double park or whatever they're going to do.
Yeah, that's a good point. In fact, when I ride down Clinton, I more or less do that. A little bit because of the vehicles that are double parked in the bike lane, but also you don't have to ride it. So even though it's there, you don't legally have to ride it. You can take the full lane if you want. So it's sort of a 6 of one, half dozen other, whether that's could be better or not. It's a good point.
All right. Well, thank you, Sarah, and thank you, Ken. So appreciate all that you do to make our community vibrant, and just the connections that you build through the bikeways and bike lanes really fosters a great community that way. So just want to express thanks for all that you do.
Yeah, thanks for your time. In a couple of years, hopefully we'll come back and say it.
Yeah. Great. We'll move on to item number 7. So reports from city staff, and starting with Julie.
Yeah, and I actually have 2 fun items for you. I will have Brad actually come up and he can go on with his report. I have 2 things to hand out to you. One being the thank you gifts that we gave for the focus groups, and I'll go ahead and give that. And then we have cookies tonight for the holidays, so I get the fun stuff, and I'll let Brad and Tyler go ahead and talk.
Thank you.
I've got fun stuff too. It's just in a different form. So just have a few updates to provide you on the Recreation Division. Right now we're doing some interviews for some full-time positions, so looking to fill those. Hopefully by the start of the new year we'll be ready to go with all of our full-time staff again. Registration for winter spring programs started yesterday for Iowa City residents, and then today was the first day for everybody else. Probably a year or two ago, we broke that up where we had Iowa City residents had their dedicated day to do registrations, which has kind of helped make sure that we're serving Iowa City residents first and foremost before the rest of the community. This weekend is going to be a little busy. We've got our holiday farmers market that's going to be here on Saturday from 8 to 1. We are full. We've been full with vendors for the last couple months. They really jumped on this one right before the holidays here, so, and all the gift giving that's to ensue. So I'm sure it will be a busy day here on Saturday. And then on Sunday, it's a tradition for us. We've got the winter solstice celebration, and that's one of Joyce's events that she does here, kind of celebrating the season. So that's going to be here on Sunday from 2 to 5. And then towards the end of, or beginning of the year, then we actually have our MLK Day of Service, which is going to be Monday, January 15th. And that's going to be over at the Mercer Park Aquatic Center. Mallory, who is our adaptive and outreach program supervisor, she's got a lot of different activities planned for that day. And so if you want to come and check out that event, you're more than welcome to do that. And then that kind of leads us into farmers market. So we kind of wrap up the season with this holiday market, and then we start in at the end of January taking registrations for the next farmers market season. So it really is kind of an all year round endeavor for us. Any questions on anything happening on the recreation side of things?
I just have one question about the registration, just because I was like obsessed with getting in a ceramics class. They're super popular.
Yes.
And what time can you get on registration? Like, should I get up at midnight to get on?
No, it's 7 o'clock.
It's 7 o'clock.
Yeah,
okay. I wrote down the wrong day, and then at like 1 o'clock this morning, I'm like,
and it was
right now. And
I
signed up.
Was the program full by the time you?
Yeah. But I signed up for a different one.
Yeah.
So okay.
Yeah. Well, and those by signing up and getting on that waiting list, that's actually what we utilize to determine if there's a need for additional programs to be added in. Which sometimes we'll look to add programs in mid-season too. So.
All right, 7 o'clock. Thank you.
Yep.
Can you use those tokens for the farmers market at the holiday market?
You sure can. Yeah. So if you've got some tokens burning a hole in your pocket. Here. Any other questions?
Thanks so much, Brad. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Tyler?
So a little repeat on the theme. We have a couple of open positions right now too. We'll be hiring, as you met Josh in his new role earlier. We'll be hiring for his replacement. We've got interviews coming up here soon. And we also have an open athletic fields, like entry-level maintenance position for that. That's currently open through tomorrow application. So we'll probably won't get that one until after the first of the year, but we're kind of in transition with a couple positions as well. Projects for next year is really what we're working on right now. We mostly finished up everything for this year. So if you've been to Happy Hollow, we've got that playground in. The playground is in at Kiwanis, and then the restroom and shelter is complete at North Hickory. So those are kind of the main ones this year. We've got the ongoing project with the pickleball and tennis. So over at Mercer, that one is started. Unless they started recently, they haven't torn anything out at City Park yet, but that'll be starting in the spring, and then of course putting in the courts after that. So that's an ongoing one. Other than that, next year it's, Julie, correct me if I'm wrong, but College Green, and then a new parcel off of Shannon Drive at the end of the Willow Creek Trail, kind of by West High there, is another location. We've had some requests for playgrounds, and that'll serve a neighborhood that doesn't have really a playground that's easily walkable right now.
The other big one would be the skate park, roller park at Terrell Mill. We have a meeting about that tomorrow, actually, and getting that really going, so.
And that'll be the first one that has public input this winter, really. So right after the new year, we'll be looking at getting that really off and rolling. And we've gotten some comments and some interest and everything in that one. And then one other ongoing project, I guess, we have that staff has been completing is the, you heard all about bikes tonight, so it's a different kind of bike trail, but off-road, single track bike course at Terrell Mill. We're making good progress on that. We have some skills features that we ordered, which I'm really excited about. If you've been over to Coralville, they have some by the same company on their single track trail there. So ours will be pretty cool where we have them. We have staff building some other features, and that trail we're hoping to have open for Memorial Day timeframe. So by the time those come in, those new features, we'll hopefully have a lot of the other kind of pieces done, and we'll be adding to it over the remainder of the year, probably making small tweaks and adjustments, but we're real excited about that as well. So any questions? Anything?
Do you envision expanding that single track trail, like to add additional trail to it?
Yeah, I think the next piece we'd like to add is if you just you'd get off on Taft Speedway and go down to property on the corner of, well, No Name Road or Colibri, depending on which thing you look at there, and Foster is kind of right there. The Elks used to own that property, so we're looking at least making a spur there, so you'd get that nice big hill a little bit into the woods there, because we own a little chunk into the woods, and making that connection. There may be other potential in the future further along there, but we want to figure out the maintenance regimen and everything on the one that we're building now, and see how we can keep that one going, and then kind of add from there. So good question.
I was able to kind of see a little bit of what was going on back there. It looks great. So.
Awesome, thanks. Yeah, the crew that's building it's really gotten into it. They've taken bikes out and tried sections themselves as they go, right. So they've made it their own. So they're having a good time building it too.
With the tennis and pickleball courts, how much of that work will the city staff do, and how much of that is contracted out for the project?
Yeah, that's all contracted out with that project. Yep.
Kind
Good
of
question.
Hoping,
yep.
Just with some of the surfacing and that other stuff that you need. So.
Yep, definitely. So that's, and they've been working on that for a couple of months now, and I think the point they have it at Mercer right now, it should go fairly quick in the spring at that location, but I don't know how they're going to phase with working City Park into that, if they're going to do all the tear out first or if they're going to continue on with that. So, yeah.
I think it has to be 55 degrees, something like that.
Yeah, so, yeah, to get to that, at least to that top coat, definitely. So, yep.
That'll be great.
Yeah. All right. Any other questions?
I can't help noticing your stocking cap.
That one was
Tyler.
that one was one that I think it was all city employees.
Got one of those.
Yeah.
Sorry, we
Yeah.
can't.
But that's been like
limited. Yeah.
4 or 5 years ago, I think. So.
Great. Appreciate all the work, Tyler, and the updates. Thank you.
Good.
Anything else from city staff, Julie? All right. Move on to chair's report. I just wanted to say that this is Melissa's last Parks and Rec Commission meeting, and it's been just an honor to serve with you, and just very much appreciated all of the comments and contribution that you've provided. And so I will never think of the Sycamore Greenway the same way, and just want to say thank you and very much appreciate all that you've done to make our community so great. So with that, yeah. Yeah.
It's been a pleasure, and I'm looking forward to seeing what the commission's doing in coming years. Should be fun for y'all.
All right. So now we'll just go around to any items, Brian. So.
I just wanted to say, I just always appreciate your super insightful and thoughtful comments, and always with grace, and I really admire it. And I'm sorry you're leaving.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I would echo that.
What else can I say?
Yeah. We'll start on the end, Alex.
So I didn't make it to last month's meeting because it was the day after our city school election, and I was just too tired at that point. I've been up for 18 hours. I just want to say thanks to Brad and Matt at Mercer I have to bug them all the time about voting and stuff, so they're always easy to work with, and they're just great locations. So thanks for your guys' help with elections.
Aaron?
I've got nothing.
Okay. Caleb?
I'm good.
All right. And we'll adjourn this meeting. So thank you so very much, everyone, for coming, and appreciate it.